This is a short video showing how I buff motorcycle parts using relatively simple, inexpensive tools and some hand labor, but mostly inexpensive materials, inexpensive tools. I consider this to be relatively easy to do to any motorcycle, whether it's brand new or if it's a restoration, which is what we usually do in the shop. Now, I've been painting basically all my life, and I'm 77 years old, so I've got a lot of experience doing this. I've tried a lot of different methods. I've tried a lot of different products. People have donated products for me. I've tested products for companies professionally. And this, I've tried to boil it down into about a 10-minute video that would make it possible for somebody that has never buffed a part in their life to take paint and buff it. This is one of the products I like, the 4CR product, 8065 or 8021. Relatively inexpensive part. The hand glaze, Evercoat hand glaze, is an excellent product. That's something you can just use the same as you would use the 4CR products. I usually finish off the final polishing with Flitz. Flitz is a commercially available product, 6,000 grit. Then, before I assemble a bike, I would put on a few coats, or at least one good coat of Colonite insulator wax. Excellent protection. The buffer that I use is about $15 from Harbor Freight. And here's the part numbers for anybody interested. Again, I try to do this with all very inexpensive equipment. Best tip you can learn from this video when you're going to buff something, anytime you're going to buff something, use a brand new terry cloth. Don't try to use the old one over. And if you use a big commercial, this is one that I got from Harbor Freight too, use the softest sponge. What I want to show is some basic buffing information. This is basic 101 information that almost everybody I know that gets involved in painting, they start at one end, maybe with spray cans, and move on to having a compressor and a spray gun. But at some point in time, the final thing that makes a job a show quality job is the buffing. So step one is make sure if you're painting, you have enough clear on here. Don't try to do a factory job with one thin coat of clear. I like to put 2 thin coats of clear, let it dry overnight, and then put a thick third coat on. And even at the point of letting it dry a couple of days, it's always going to be easier. Now, the first thing is to sand it, soapy water. In this case, it's 2,000 grit paper. If you use 2,500, nothing bad will happen. It'll just take a lot longer. If you use a rougher grit, it'll go a little quicker, but what will happen is, at some point in time, you're going to spend 2 or 3 times that amount of time with the buffing wheel. So the first thing on any buffing or wet sanding job is to get at least the formula that I've used. Now, other people, certainly in anything finishing, anything in motorcycling, there's more than one way to do it. But my objective is to show people what has worked for me very well. And again, plenty of clear. You can't skimp on the clear, because if there's any high or low spots and you go through, you basically got to repaint the part or start from someplace and work your way back up into the clear. But if you have enough clear on there and you do a nice sanding job. Now, this is Vince's BMW that we did in the shop, and I was really happy because this was a beautiful color blue that had a little metallic flavor to it, and I was dying to see how it was going to look once it was buffed out. Now, we did a whole lot of other parts, but for a demo purpose, it's best to have a smaller part so the video doesn't go on for 12 hours. But it's the same thing over and over and over, and it sounds like I repeat over and over and over, and I do, because I learned that when I was the editor of Flying Models, assistant columnist, not an editor, but the editor would always tell me, the head editor, that you've got to repeat things every 2 years because we have new people reading the magazine. Well, it's the same with our video. We have 11,000 subscribers, and a lot of them don't go back 10 years. So repeating, if I repeat things, I apologize, of course, but it's a good point to remember. It's always better to repeat something than to leave out a step, because there really are people in the real world that own a motorcycle and want to paint it, and want to be able to finish it up to this level. And yes, that information is available on YouTube from several other people who all maybe more professional than I am, or less professional, it doesn't matter. But you got to find what works for you. Now, the stuff I do is a very, very basic 101 simple way to do things. And it's this step right here. This is the step. To get the paint, and this is the final coat of clear, it's best to let it dry 2 or 3 days. The longer the better. If you can get it up by a heat vent, because we always paint in the winter here, even better. But the whole objective here is to have it dull and flat with 2000 grit paper. When you have that step correct, it won't really be critical what polish you use, what buffer you use, if you buff by hand, if you buff by machine, or how you do it. This is the step that really matters. And once you can do this to a small part like this, it opens up the door to being able to paint your whole motorcycle, or paint your friend's motorcycle, or in my case, I've painted guitars, outboard engines, all kinds of crazy stuff, and or be able to do it for your friends as a mitzvah, which we've done many things in the shop. But the biggest thing to learn from this video, if you're new to painting, and that's the step right there, to be able to look at it, see it's flat, there's no shiny spots, there's no moon craters, there's no divots. That step right there with 2000 grit paper is the key to getting it perfect. Now, I like to use, and it's one of the favorite products I have, the 4CR line of products. 8021 is really good. 8065, there's several that are really, really good. They're made to cut quickly and not remove a lot of material, and it seems like they work very well in conjunction with the Harbor Freight, the small buffer, and or the big buffer, and I've used both of them on this job. And it doesn't seem like, at this point in time, if you have the sanding nice and flat, and there's a million little tricks you can do, then one of the things they recommend, see how I'm putting on the polish? They recommend putting the polish on the mitt a certain way and putting it on the part a certain way. But what I found out, the biggest trick, the biggest thing worth its weight in gold, is use a new pad. Don't use a pad over and over and over and over. The pad dries out. The material dries out, and there are ways you can rejuvenate it. Glenn had a product that used to put spray onto the compound, and it got a little involved. This is the simple 101 way of buffing, and I like to keep it simple, because most of the people that seriously want to learn how to do this is a hardcore thing. You really want to learn how to do this. It isn't difficult, and it isn't high-tech. It's not like building a rocket to the moon or dyno tuning your Bonneville racer. What it is a simple thing. You can pick up this simple skill very quickly. It's not expensive. The sandpaper and the compound and even the buffer, it's a few dollars. It's not a lot of money. But the difference is when you learn how to do this, it opens the door, as I've said so many times, to being able to paint and being able to get that final show quality finish on anything. And I mean anything. And I painted stuff for Karen that she's been amazed. We've refinished antiques, tabletops that come out like, looks like they have a piece of glass on top of them. Done a lot of stuff, but the key is learning how to do this very simple skill. 2000 grit paper I have found to be the most efficient. Any of the 4CR products or the Evercoat products or the Meguiar's products, they all cut, and the bigger the number is, the shinier the part will ultimately be, but it'll take more time. So what happens if you use, like an example, Flitz, which is 6000 grit, it'll take a long time, but you'll really have a super finish. This product, the 4CR, it'll go a lot quicker, and you'll have maybe 95% of the shine. But then the final thing you can do is, at this point in time, when you're done, finish it off with Flitz. And that's this compound here, by the way. You can do it by hand if you have small parts with a lot of curves and edges, or a big flat part like this, you can do with a buffer. And either way, it just seems like it's a simple thing. I wanted to do this in real time, not do it in fast forward, to show what this stuff, how easy it is to go from having a finish that's nice to having a finish that's absolutely show quality. And I mean, I would challenge somebody to put that in a car show with his bright lights and everything, that is about as nice as you're going to get it. I don't know, maybe other people have tricks that are even better, but this, you can see, because this video is in real time, how long it took to do this and what the final result is. Now, when you get to this point, it's obvious you want to just finish off and maintain it. Now, if you really want to go to the final level, this is the softest of the foam pads, and any product like Flitz or any of the products that are really big numbers, 3500 grit products, the Meguiar's wax works well. And when you're all done, I like to put on the Colonite 187 wax, and then I know I've got that part. When I put the bike back together, or in this case Vince is going to put it back together, it's up to a certain point protected from you drip a little something oil on it or something, whatever. But keep in mind the pads that go on the big buffer, they come in rough, medium, and fine. At this point, I would only want to use the fine pad. The rough pad might put scratches in that finish, because that finish now, at this point in the job, is really, really coming out nice. Now, I don't like to speculate what you could do to make that better, shinier. You could hand buff it with a little Flitz maybe, or there's a lot of things maybe you could do. But to me, if you can get your whole motorcycle to look like that on a snowy winter day, to me, that jumps right out at you that is a custom, one-of-a-kind motorcycle. Now, I've posted a lot of other videos about buffing. I wanted this one to be simple, short, and sweet. This is like a 101 of buffing. Look at that paint with that metal flake in it, the little sparkles. And I thought, this is brief and right to the point of how you can do it. And I've tried to put on this video all the tips that I think would make it possible, practical, and that anybody could do it. If you're doing something with a lot of curves, a lot of times it's better to do it with a clean microfiber. Oh, look at the reflection in that part. But I have to admit, this system that I've used is relatively low labor, relatively low money, and the results really speak for themselves. Now, if you're new to the channel, we try to share our passion for motorcycling, working on them, painting them, polishing them, keeping the old guys running and out on an open road. We try to share our rides. We try to share our enthusiasm for meeting up with friends and going for rides, or just hanging out and oogling each other's motorcycles. It's all a lot of fun. It is the passion of motorcycles. There's 2,600 videos out on YouTube now. They're all free, and any one you look at, I hope you enjoy. And thanks so much for watching.